Okay, so let's slide over here. And, okay, perfect. Again, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. I think this is an important time, and we were just kind of discussing as you guys were taking a break. What an interesting time this is for entrepreneurs, and it's an interesting time, and there's opportunity within it. And I applaud everybody for being a part of this program and following their passion. And I'm going to use passion a lot during my presentation because I don't think you ever do a really great job at anything unless you have passion for it. Unless you have some kind of thought process of, I want to build something. I want to make something better. When we make products or do a service, it is about solving someone's problem. It is about looking at their pain points and what can I solve? So that's a lot of things we're going to talk today. And as I was trying to set up a presentation, what kind of things do I want to talk about? And those are, I'm going to talk about relationship, and I'm going to talk about passion. I'm going to talk about perspective. And I think that's really, really important. I hope at the end of the day, and I was texting David about this, I want to add value because we could go off in a million different ways. We could talk about just a marketing plan. And that's great. You need to think about those things. But what are the bigger picture things that you need to have a mindset for? And I think those are important. So again, as David already prepped you with, my name is Craig Flinn. I've been in the marketing field for over 20 years now. As I was creating that bio, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm super old. But I've been a part of marketing for a very long time. But if you'll notice down here, I put brand storyteller. And when I was early in my marketing career, my boss said to me, that's what we are. We tell brand stories. Every campaign that we do is about a story. What are we trying to convey? But I put that last. I'm a marketer, and I put it in parentheses. I put it last because it's not all encompassing of what I am. And none of you should have your business and your entrepreneur as everything that encompasses. I'm a professor. I take that job really seriously, and it's a privilege to do that job. I also work at Western as well. Trying to share some of the things that I've encountered in my marketing career and the things that happened to me and how we can apply those things. I put second to last, a paddler. I don't define myself as that, but it's a passion of mine. And those things feed my job. They feed what I am. And I think everybody, you're starting a business, it can be all encompassing. Man, you could be working 24 hours a day, and a lot of you do. But it is good to have other things that don't define you, but are a part of you. And I think that helps your business at the end of the day. So that's why I wanted to put those things there. And I think brand storyteller and marketer in parentheses is an important one. Because I know a lot of you aren't marketers, you're entrepreneurs. But where does marketing fit in terms of your business? I think is an important thing. So the first question as I was putting this together is, what is marketing? And I think at the end of the day, marketing is about understanding the needs of the customer, understanding your customer. And as David can attest to, I stress target audience a lot. Maybe more than most people, because I think it's so important. It's about knowing people, knowing who you're communicating with. Marketing is about communication. Okay, so focusing on those wants and needs, and what do you do different than your competition? So you were just doing your value proposition roulette, which sounds like a heck of a lot of fun for me. But where do you see things that you do differently? What is the distinguishing things? What are your differentiator? Is really, really important. So how do you direct your activities to what the customer wants? We used to look at marketing in a much different way. And we looked at, we have a product, how do we sell that to people? Now we need to look at things what do people want? What do people need? How do I give them those things? How do I relieve or solve that problem? So we need to take our products or service or whatever we do and satisfy those wants and needs the best we can, and develop new things as new issues come about for our target audience. Who can we sell things to? And that's why I put this next slide of marketing is becoming something, and it's already become that, but it's fluid, right? It's a conversation with our customer. I put in bold a relationship. I stress relationship a lot. Think about, and I have 4 slides dedicated to it out of 40, so that shows my importance of it. Relationship, think about your relationships, your closest relationships that you have. Maybe it's your mother or your father or your significant other or whatever. You have to nurture that relationship, don't you? If you don't talk to your friends for a very long time, some of those relationships die or peter out. We need to constantly look at our marketing as a relationship to our consumer and talk to them. So this conversation is now being led in really innovative ways to look at pain points. What is your product? What is your service solve for people? So you might be saying, well, I sell bracelets, or I whatever. Maybe that's too simplistic. But it's making people. It's not just selling bracelets. It's making people feel good about themselves. It makes them look good. In turn, that makes them feel good. Okay, so this is an opportunity. Marketing is an opportunity to continually telling people a brand story. So relationship is, marketing used to be interruption. It's a commercial that comes in the middle of my show. Okay, but now it's interaction. We talk about engagement a lot, and that social media has taken over, but moved into other parts of marketing as well. How do I get people to interact with my brand? That's communication. Again, I'll always refer to, think about your friends. If they meet, we meet them where they are. There's a lot of friends that I have that I never talk to on the telephone. I text. Calling them on the phone is useless because they never pick up the phone, but they text a lot, right? So I meet them on the platform that they feel comfortable with, and I want to interact. That's what we need to do with our consumers. So this importance of relationship is long-term. It's interactive. It's back and forth. It's joining a conversation, and it never stops. Okay, when we think of a campaign, well, I'm going to run a campaign or I'm going to run a sale. Okay, but that doesn't change. We don't get on Facebook and then get off Facebook once we're done. This is an ongoing thing, and it just gets deeper. If it doesn't get deeper, it has the potential to end. And that's not what we want. Or someone else will continue that conversation or competition and take its place. So think about in this time, and this is an interesting, I put this kind of checking in idea. In this time, in COVID and pandemic times, we're talking about checking in with our relationships, with our friends, with our family. We can't be there physically, so we check in with them. And I've had a lot of people who I haven't heard from in, honestly, years, say, I'm just checking in on you to see how you're doing. This is the same thing we do with our consumer. We check in, and it's not the same of how you're doing. We have a conversation. We continually talk to them, okay? Marketing is the closest thing to the customer that we have. We could produce our product, all those things, but we are the conduit from the people to our company. And we report back to our company and say, here's what people want. Here's what they are saying. Why are they saying these things? So think of it that way. I mean, it's an important role. And in times of bad times, marketing is the first thing that gets cut, right? Because it takes a lot of effort, it takes some money, it does those things. But that's the time we need to continually have conversations with people. It's so very, very important. And so this relationship thing is a big one. So we need this relationship to attract new customers, to get new people, to increase the business we have. Think about, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this in many different forms. If we get people buying our product, we get customers, we want to keep them in motion. We want to continually keeping them buying our product. So we nurture those existing business contacts and retain the people we have. That's how we increase our market share. So it's a loop. It's always continuing. We're trying to attract new people. We're trying to keep the people we have and get people buying more product because we believe it's a really good product. Value is something I wanted to throw in here. I wanted to find a place for this because value is really, really important. It is the benefit we get and the sacrifice that we achieve to get those things. So people, what do people have to do? They have to pay money for our product or service. That's what they have to give up. They get something from it. So think of value. Value is always determined by the customer. Every one of you thinks you have a great idea and a great product or great service, but who determines that? The customer always determines that. Think of Mercedes-Benz and they say, okay, we're going to sell a car that's going to be $100,000. It's not worth $100,000 until somebody decides I'm willing to pay for it. Then it is worth that money. Slowly they build a reputation of a quality product and people buy it. So we have to look at everything from the customer point of view. The customer decides value. So the customer values goods that are of good quality, and they're willing to pay that money to get it. So this value, again, I think this presentation or what I'm trying to bring is maybe a different mindset of how we're dealing with our customers and what they're thinking of. So they want, customers want products that perform well or services that give them true value. They want to earn trust. They want to avoid unrealistic pricing. They don't want to pay too much for a product, but a lot of people, the $100,000 Mercedes is totally worth it to them. Okay, or maybe we can't afford that, something else. But they want to pay good quality value for money. So we want to co-create, this is what they want, is an experience. More and more we talk about experience or user experience. I think that's a really important one. They want to feel a part of a brand. And that's part of the brand story, all those things. What does your brand convey? And how do people feel about it? That's when you're positioning yourself in the marketplace. How do people feel about your product? What do they want to feel? Those things are really important. So the customer value is an important one. I wanted to get it in here. So small business can be a little bit different than larger business and things, and because there's a certain set of things that we're dealing with. The idea of build it and they will come, these overnight success stories rarely happen. It's usually a long time coming. Okay, so we need to look at why is it different for small business because of limited resources. And a lot of you are probably dealing with that now and kind of figuring out what you have. Time is a big one. We just don't have enough time. We don't have enough money to do the things that we want to do. And the human capital is a big one. Probably because of money, we don't have the money to hire a marketing company or have a marketing department. When we say a marketing department, you're probably the marketing department. Okay, so those things are limited. I remember going to a conference when I first got into marketing, first got my marketing job, went to a conference and a gentleman from Coca-Cola was talking. And he was talking about a $20 million campaign. And I was a few months into this company and we were dealing with clients who had $20,000 to spend on marketing. I leaned over to my colleague and said, $20 million. Try doing that for $20,000 when that's all the money that you have. Okay, so it's limited. We understand that. So traditional ways of doing things may not always work for smaller businesses. So we need to have very clear strategy of what we want to achieve, the objectives, and a very clear mode of measurement. Measurement's really, really important. It's something that people forget a lot because it takes a lot of time. Measure everything right from the very beginning as much as you can because you have something then to refer back to. What worked and what didn't work? What had value, what didn't? Because you want to spend the money that you have, the limited amount of money that you have in the beginning, on something that has true value. So we need a foundation here somewhere. So before we start laying bricks, we need this foundation. We need to have some kind of plan. We need to have an idea of what success actually means for us. And in this presentation, we're going to talk about, people always come to me and say, best practices. Give me a best practices for this. I hate that term. Because businesses are so different. Best practices really don't exist, but it's a good starting place, but you have to find what it is. So define your success and set some kind of budget. Have some idea of what you're doing with your marketing money. So the first part we're going to talk about is choosing a market, meaning who we're going to sell things to. Put in this little window here, you can't be everything to everyone. That is absolutely true. I have a lot of clients who come to me and I'll say to them, one of the first exercises we'll do, I'll say, who is your market? Who are you selling this product to? Anyone that can buy it. Anyone with money. Because they believe it's so great that everyone will want to buy it. Possibly true, but it's definitely not true. You are not selling to everybody. There is a certain group of people who are predisposed to buying your product, and we market to them. So only a small amount of people are even interested in your product. So we need to identify who they are and focus on them. Eventually, we may find other markets that we want to sell to, or we may develop products based on our information, products to other groups of people, but we need to be very specific with what we're trying to do. So choosing a segment is really, really important. How do we do this? Well, we look at a market size. Okay, who are you targeting and how many potential customers are there? You may have a great product, but the marketplace may be too small. We need to obviously reach as many people within a market size that we possibly can. So is it a viable marketplace? Who are these people? Do they have enough money to buy your product? A lot of products are very expensive, but does the target that we're looking at, is it big enough? And do they have enough money to buy that product is very, very important. Within that marketplace and what you're trying to do, what is the competition? Is there a lot of competition? Is the market saturated with competitors? Who are those competitors? Okay, and in the first part of this presentation, I said that your business can't be everything your whole life, but you certainly have to do a lot of work. And I know you guys all know that, of who am I dealing, who is the competition, and what do they have different than me? Is this a marketplace with a lot of competitors or a marketplace with only one or two? Am I one of two or am I one of 50? Okay, and that can make a huge difference. And then you go, oh, there's value proposition roulette. Oh my goodness, okay. You guys just played that. So what is, and you guys probably know this better than I do, what is your value proposition? And is it unique enough to cut through the noise? And when I say noise, I'm talking about clutter, and think about social media, think about all of the products out of people vying for people's attention. Can your product cut through that? What are your differentiators? What makes you unique? What can you hang your hat on and say, we do that better than our competition? I told this story in my class a lot, and David's heard this probably a couple times because I repeat myself because it's so good. I worked at a marketing agency, and we were doing a rebranding of our company and saying, okay, what do we do better than anyone else? And I was kind of smart alecky at the time, and I said, nothing, absolutely nothing. And we were on a call like this, and we didn't have Zoom back then, but this was a phone call, and we had 4 people on it. And there was a notable 10-second silence as my boss, I guess, contemplated that. He said, what do you mean by that? And so I kind of rejigged myself and said, okay, we don't do anything better, but we do everything. If we take the collective, we connect the dots better than anyone else because we do all of those things. In each area, we aren't the best, but we do all of those things and we connect the dots for our customers. He loved that and said, oh man, I really love that. And I kind of went, thank goodness, I kind of pulled it out of the fire there. But you need to look at, what do you do better than anyone else? Is there something, a reason for being? Okay. Defining success, I think, is a really important. We're going to talk about objectives in a second, and I think they're really, really important because success is different for different people. And that's why when we say best practices, that's why I kind of shy away from that, because everything is different. To put your success in terms of what other people do is sometimes a mistake. So define and really think about, what is success for you? What are you trying to achieve? Okay, and make sure that everyone understands that on your team. Our definition of success. This is what we're trying to do. And stay consistent month after month. Pick a definition, commit to that. It can be fluid, it can change. Success, as you gain success, you look at success in a different way. And what is that? So as an example, success for you may be 500 new signups for a newsletter, okay, for one small business, while another may say it's $50,000 monthly revenue. It means different things to different people. And you can have many different things. And it's always good to have those, but look at your definition of success. What do you want to achieve? And make it something that you can achieve. I think that's really important. So I was just talking about objectives. So marketing objectives, really, really important. Goals of your marketing effort, okay, expressed in terms of a specific marketplace, an objective of some kind, and a specific time frame. And I think that's really important. I have a lot of clients who say, oh, I got an opportunity to do this, and I'm going to have some radio ads. And does that suit, is that going to work towards your objective? Everything we do has to go back to our objective. Does that serve it? Okay, so having an objective is really important. So here's an example. Domino's Pizza will increase awareness among the target audience by 30%. A lot of you say, wow, that's a really good objective. And it is, absolutely. Increasing awareness is something that I get a lot from clients, and probably I need to get awareness out there. So increasing awareness, that's a great, great goal. And why I put it up there and say it's great, but not good enough, is because it's not as specific as we need it to be. So let's take another one and say Best Buy will increase online registration for their newsletter with adults 35 to 50 by 25% in the next 2 quarters. Okay, so specific target audience, the adults 35 to 50. Okay, and an objective of some kind, 25%, and a specific time frame in the next 6 months. Okay, that way we can measure success. And a lot of times when I'm doing this, I'm talking to students who are in the marketing program. And I say, as marketers, we need to define our success so we know if we're successful at the end. When you do things, you want to say, was that successful or not? Sorry about that, guys. Am I successful or not? And if you don't have an objective or have some kind of thought process, you'll never know if you're successful. If you don't say 25%, you say, well, I increased my awareness by 10%. I'm really happy with that. Someone else is going to say, well, I thought we'd get more. Okay, so if we define it and say 30% is what we're aiming for, if we get that, we are happy. Okay, so we need to be as specific as we can be when we know we're successful or not. And that's only through measurement can we know that. So these things here, it is a statement of what we want to accomplish. And all of these things work together. It has to be realistic. So don't set yourself up for failure. Don't say, I want to raise by 80%. There's no way you're going to reach that. And then everyone's disappointed and you're disappointed. You don't need that. Be realistic with it. Be time specific. How long are you looking at this? The next year, the next 3 months, the next whatever. And have it be measurable. And measurable is a really thing. I mean, I know that takes a lot of time, but there's a lot of tools out there to help us measure things. And we need to take advantage of those things because you're busy people. You're not marketers. You're doing a whole bunch of different things. Marketing is just one of those things. So make it as easy on yourself as you possibly can. Yeah? So to be measurable and to know you're doing, you need some kind of metrics. Okay. So these measurable core metrics need to be as specific as you possibly can. Focusing only on what matters to you. And this is where that idea of best practices come into play. You need to have your KPIs or key performance indicators that are important to you. What is really important to you? I don't know how many meetings I've gone into with clients and they come out with a stack, and yeah, people still print paper, it drives me crazy, but they'll come in with a stack like this of information and say, we've analyzed all of these things. And we sit there for about 2 hours. And at the end, I'll usually say, and what does that mean exactly? Well, they don't know because they have all of these things that they're measuring. Well, let's take 2 or 3 or whatever, a certain amount, and focus on those that we think are really, really important. Okay, and we look at those things and what they actually do for us. So we record, I put this little tip there at the bottom, record some kind of baseline metrics as soon as you can so we can determine growth, what's working and what's not. Because again, a lot of times when I talk to clients, I say, what's working for you and what's not, they don't really know. The more you know, that is really a power about your business. Put in this little box here, vanity metrics or things that make you feel good, but do they mean anything? They need to be tied to some kind of real growth. How your business is doing, really. Okay, so let's look at an example of, there's a quick little easy kind of thing. So let's say your objective is, I want 100 people email signups for the next month. Okay, so to determine those metrics, how do we get that? We work backwards, right? We're looking at a funnel. So we say for 100 signups, what do we need? Well, we need a conversion rate of that signup form, meaning we get people to sign up for it. Okay, well, how do we get that? Well, we need people, right? So we need unique traffic to our website. And I know probably all of you know unique traffic. We need new people all the time. If you only get the same 50 people coming back to your website, I'm not going to get those 100 signups. I need new unique people. So if we take 3% as a pretty good conversion rate, we look at what does that mean? Well, we need to have essentially 3,333 unique visitors at the top of that funnel to actually get those 100. Okay, so we need to look at what kind of things are we looking at? What are the metrics that we really need to get us to where we want to be, that definition of success? This is a really simple kind of example. Every business is different, so you're looking at different things. But work it back and decide, what do I need to get to that point? Setting a budget. This is a really interesting thing because, again, a lot of things are coming at you at the same time. And well, it only costs this, and a lot of things are subscription. Well, it's only $15 a month. Well, it's only $30 a month. Before long, you're getting a lot of things and you're spending a lot of money that you don't know where it's going. So set some kind of budget, accept that limit, and then you can always add to that. You carefully plan and intend how do you divide that budget. So you have to look at what gets you the most. So if it's your blog, or if it's a blog kind of situation, or it's a social media, if that's your biggest lead generator, invest in that in the beginning. Put most of your marketing budget into something that is actually working for you, and refine that and make it better. Okay. A lot of times I say to clients, okay, if you have a budget, we all have a budget of 20,000, take a couple of percentage points of that budget and try something new all the time. Because the things that work today may not work tomorrow. So look at what else can I do, and put a little bit of money. Those new things that you try will become your ways of doing things in the future. So always try new things. You're trying to communicate with people. Remember that relationship I talked about. We're trying to communicate on different ways. So try new things. Maybe it's a white paper, maybe it's a webinar or something, maybe it's some kind of social media platform. Try something new to see if that brings you some results. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's why we're not putting our whole budget towards that. We're only giving a little bit of it towards a new communication tool for where our target audience actually is. Social media is something again, this could be a whole topic that we could talk about for a whole year. And I have a class that we talk about it for 14 weeks. So we're only going to talk about it for a few minutes. Maybe we can talk about it again at another time. But social media is a really important tool, especially for small business. Why? Because a lot of it's free, and people say, well, it's free. Well, where it's not free is your time and someone's effort and measurement and continually talking to people. Think about the investment. We talk about relationship, right? Relationship takes effort, doesn't it? The most things when relationships don't go well, it's because, well, I never talked to them. I mean, that person didn't talk to me. Communication is usually the issue. And that's what social media takes in terms of time. Okay, but it is one of the best ways to get your content out there. Okay, and it generates new leads, and it gets you in the mindset of your customer and learning about what they find valuable about your brand. What social media really does well for small business is it levels the playing field in some way. Okay, it gives you an opportunity to talk one-on-one. The best selling situation is a one-on-one conversation where I can talk to you and try to sell you something. Okay, this is the best we can do because I can't be everywhere in the world. So this is my conduit to making that one-on-one situation as close as I possibly can. Okay, and have direct contact with my consumer. So a common mistake that people make is trying to be on every social media network. And that's great. But what we want to look at is, where does our target feel comfortable gathering information? And it may be on a lot. It might be on Twitter, it might be on Instagram, it might be on Facebook. But the idea that you're going to master every social network and do everything correctly is really unrealistic, isn't it? So we have to look at, what does my target audience use primarily? And let's go there. And if we had a little more time, I would pop up this, what do we first do? Think of it like a social situation. We don't come in and just try to sell people stuff. We try to be a part of the conversation. We try to listen to what conversations they're having and then interject ourselves in that. It's a check-in kind of thing. So every social network has their own characteristics, right? Okay, Twitter, often powered by links. Instagram caters usually to a younger audience, but that's changing. And I put that the rules are always changing. When we looked at doing a campaign to older people, 50 plus, 60 plus, 70 plus, we would say, well, social media is not something we would use. That's absolutely changing, because more and more older people are getting on Instagram, or getting on Facebook, or getting on social, because, and especially now that is their connective tool to their friends and family and all those kind of things, they are learning very quickly. So that rule is no longer applies. Everyone uses social media in some fashion, so we can't just think of those stereotypes. We need to actually look at what programs or what platforms our target audience uses. Okay, so we need to be mindful of who we're trying to reach and what do they use. To say that you're going to master every one of those things, and you may say, well, I use Twitter a lot. You may use Twitter personally, but from a marketing point of view, from a business point of view, that's a different prospect. Because naturally, it's always been an interest of mine of, why would people follow a business on social media? Social media is about entertainment and connecting with people and doing those things. How you work that is a really interesting way of marketing. And the ones that do it really well, you can see how they become part of that community. Okay, so we look at, consider the platforms that are your target or the people that you're reaching out to. What if they feel comfortable using? You go to them. Remember relationship that I talked about early on, and I said I was going to go back to that because I always go back to that. If your friends, in times when we could get together, if your friends all meet at the Starbucks in the corner of Central and Richmond, well, where would you go to meet your friends if that's where they go? You go to the Starbucks in Central Richmond. That's where you meet. Well, it's the same thing here for our target. If they go on Instagram and they're you, then that's where we go. It's not, as marketers, we take our bias out of things, don't we? It's not what you feel comfortable with, because it's not about you, it's about them. So we go to them. And that's really, really important. We do those things. Again, a quick little story. When I was working at an agency, my boss said one morning, and he got up really early. This is in Toronto, and so about 5 a.m. he sends me a text and says, I don't hear our commercial on radio on 680 News as I'm driving in from Oakville into downtown Toronto. I said, well, we're not on 680 News. Why? He said. He was very upset about this. And I said, because this is a campaign geared towards teenage boys who are 18 to 21. And he's like, so? And I said, well, they don't listen to 680 News. They do other things. We're on different radio stations, or we're on different platforms, because that's geared toward them. You are a 64-year-old man. You listen to 680 News, not them. So we go to them. I said, they would be a waste of our clients' money to go on a platform where they aren't. We go where they go, right? And that's a really important part. So people always say, remember I talked about best practices, and I hate that. I do, because you have to find out what works for you. And what does that take? It takes trial and error, doesn't it? You need to look at your target audience and say, okay, where are they? And then I just put these things again. I don't even want to go through them because I hate saying. What it shows is when people have time, they go on Twitter, they go on Facebook, but these things are changing all the time. And your target may be totally different. Yes, Saturdays work really well for Facebook because people are at home, people have more time, but they also have time during the day. Think about these pandemic times. People are at home on their computer a lot. I bet you have a lot more time to check your Facebook, don't you? Or go on Facebook or go on Instagram. I know I do. My Instagram time has gone through sky high through the roof. I'm an Instagram user. I love it. So every day about, I used to go about 9, 10 o'clock. I have a limit set, and it used to be 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. Now it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, oh God, I've used all my time, because these are different times. Find what works for you. So try different things. You're trying different messages, you're trying different times, you're trying different, and see what works for you. See what your audience responds to. When I talk, and we're going to talk about content in a second here. Hopefully, I'm just trying to look at our time. What kind of content are they looking for? And how you do that is you go on to those platforms and listen, meaning watch what other people, what they're talking about. And then you give them those kind of things. You try to engage them as best as possible. You give them that kind of stuff. Okay. I want to throw this in: social media, creating an influencer list. This is a really interesting one. When I say an influencer list, not going out and getting an influencer to endorse your product. That can cost a lot of money. So we want to influence the influencers. We want people to look at our product and say, I really, really like this. Who do you already have connecting with people? You want to connect with as many people in your target as you possibly can. In this little box here, we see 78% of people are influenced, at least moderately, through some kind of post or somebody using a product. Okay. One of my greatest successes is a product, and I want to give the product away, but was we had reached out. One of our followers for this product was a dentist in Hamilton. And you say, well, he's not an influencer. He certainly was, because he had about 150,000 people who followed him. He was a dentist who did little thing. He was hilarious. He was a really funny guy. He didn't always talk about dentists. He talked about but what he did is use local products and use them in his posts. And we reached out to him and said, will you use your product? And he said, well, I don't want to get paid for it. I said, good, because we don't have any money to pay you. And we don't want to pay you, but we think it's a really good product. And so he got it, we put it in his hands, and he used it. So we influenced the influencers, and that was really important. think about, it doesn't have to be celebrities, it just has to be people who are talking to a similar target audience. Okay? And hopefully you can get on them on your side. And people love connecting with people. Okay, and that's what we're doing when we say influence the influencers. No, I don't want you to take your budget and try to get Kim Kardashian to influence, use your product. That's not going to happen. And if you have that much money, then I don't, whatever. It is real people using real products. I love the idea of real people, but a lot of these people have big followers, similar target audiences. Okay, so when I say setting up your blog, the next thing was a blog. Facebook is a blog. It's a running content trail, right? So we're looking at great content is really, really important. And what a blog or what your Facebook or your Instagram, the last part is really important. Set yourself apart as an expert in your field. So if it's a product or service or whatever, that you are a great source for people to get information. Okay, and you need to set yourself up as some kind of expert. Choosing the right platform is really, really important. How do things look? And again, I'm sure you guys talk about design and all that kind of stuff. Within this context of what we're doing here, I'm not going to get into some of those things, but how does it look? Is it pleasing? Is it professional? Or what does it look at it from your client's point of view? Does it look right? And are you looking at providing the right kind of content that actually enhances people's lives, that it solves their problems? Yeah, so make sure your blog or anything that you're doing is functional. Number one thing, and that's the one I'm going to talk about here, clear call to action. I love this idea of the squint test. Does it stand out? Do people very clearly know what you're doing? And if you're having a sale, is it very clear what you're doing? What is the next step? Okay, and usually if we got into social media and things in a very deep level, we want to reduce the number of steps it takes for people to get to you and get to your call to action. How many steps does it take? How do we eliminate more chances for people? The more steps it takes, the more chances people drop off, right? They don't go the next step. And I'm doing that with a volunteer at a place called Reforest London. And basically what we're trying to do is put more trees in the ground. And we want people to register trees as they plant them. And we're looking at that registration form. It's actually three steps. But we have people who do 1 or 2 steps and then drop off. Why? Right? And we're looking at those things. So that's a very simple thing. We need to look at the functionality. How do we get people closer to that conversion or whatever we want them to do? Is it visit your website, whatever it is? Okay, so you need to look at the functionality of what you're doing. I like this idea of defining your sensitivities. And I put in quotes, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. We need to identify those competition. So we were doing secondary market research. We would identify groups of people who are doing similar things. Okay, what are their strengths and weaknesses? And this is a great little thing to do on an ongoing basis, not just do it once, you do it ongoing. When you see your competition doing something else, why are they doing that? And how does that continue? How does that serve what they're trying to do? How does that solve a problem for the target audience that I'm going after? Think about Samsung and Apple. You think Apple monitors what Samsung's doing on a regular basis? Yes, obviously, right? Do you think Coke monitors what Pepsi's doing on an ongoing basis? They have a whole horde of people who just watch Pepsi's social media. Why are they having that conversation? What conversations are they having? What kinds of things? So we identify the strengths and weaknesses. Again, gathering all the information available, and if they have an edge in something, what is it, or where are they lacking, and where can we make headway? Okay, we've only got a short amount of time to engage people before trying to sell them something. That overt selling sometimes doesn't go off very well. So we need to engage them. Trust is the big thing, right? People trust and say, I think that's a good product. I think people want to engage and feel good about buying a product before we try to sell them something. So focus on 1 or 2 of your strongest aspects that you have, your value proposition, if you will. Engage those and use those, again, in your media and what you're trying to do. Content creation. I know David had said that you've engaged in this a little bit, and that's great. So content creation is really, really important. And we want to make it as seamless and as less daunting for you as you possibly can. So we need to look at create a topic list. So in looking at all these things that we just basically touched upon, create your core list of topics that you can engage with, 15 to 20, and how you're going to talk about them, what you're going to talk about. And remember not to just put one or two words, add a description. So from a month or two down the road, you know exactly what you were talking about. But that comes into an idea of brainstorming, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But create a topic list of things you want to talk about. Okay, really important things. Videos, and this is something that I do in a big way with a company I'm involved with, brought to you by. And I got in on this early, about 10, 15, 20 years ago, somewhere around there. Video really engages people. There's a little platform called YouTube. I don't know if you've heard of it. Little startup, right? And they get a ton of traffic. Why? Because people love to engage with videos. They love to see you doing things. They love to see your product in action. So it might be very simple, like an explainer video, meaning explaining what your product does, how you think it's good, or an introduction video or whatever, or maybe it's a funny video, or maybe it's in action, whatever. You can put it on your website, you can put it on YouTube, you can put it on a number of platforms. People want to engage with something. I could write 15 pages on a web page. One video could take the place of that and do it more effectively, right? So a lot of times look at your website, which is your main communication tool, and say, okay, what can I replace, or where can I put a video to engage people? Okay, and I think that's really, really important. Statistically speaking, I mean, you might say, well, is it working as well as it did, 5, 10 years ago? Absolutely it is, because again, we are time starved. Think about your target audience. The one thing we can't get back is time. So when we look at videos being, 2 or 3 minutes, that's why, because our attention spans are really small and we want to get the point across, but we can do number of videos. So again, some statistics, videos do equal more customers. So Dropbox introduced a very simple instructional video of how their product works. On their landing page, in one day, they saw 75,000 new subscribers just by showing how simple this product or service actually is. Okay? Online Shoes converts 45% more customers using video, almost 360% year-over-year increase. Again, just showing their product, showing people using it. Okay, and I think it's really important. And you can do these things really yourself. Okay, when we film video for clients and things like that, we're just using a regular camera. People think you need a crew of 15 people. You can do it with one person, okay, or 2 people, very, very simply. And it's a good way to engage your client base, and it's also a good way to put out a lot of content and see what people respond to. Remember we talked about metrics and measuring? Put out content, see what they respond to, see what they don't respond to. Again, I think that's really, really important. So knowing what kind of content, whatever you're looking at, everything has advantages and disadvantages, okay? Looking at it, again, all you need to look at is from your target audience mindset. Okay? Try different types of things. Monitor what they respond to and test it, monitor it, and say, okay, this worked and this didn't work. And we used to call it, when I was working at an agency, I still kind of do this too, we call it post-mortem. That sounds kind of morbid, an autopsy term, but we looked at what worked and what didn't work. And some of the most important things are, why didn't this work? Because obviously we did it with the intention of it working. What did we miss on? Why didn't it get the response we did? Did we not look at the target audience? Did we misgauge what they were interested in and not? Maybe we need to go back and monitor and listen to what conversations they're having. What kind of things do they want? You're not going to try different things because you're never going to do everything correctly. Not everything is a home run. Sometimes a single is okay. Some wins are really important. This is a building kind of thing, right? So we need to monitor things and look at what kind of content gets the reaction we want. Capturing emails, again, I put this in because it's really important to be able to communicate with people. Social media gives us the ability to do that. Email still works. We can use things, and I'm a big believer in using as many things as we possibly can, like MailChimp or gathering things through Hootsuite or something like that. Whatever you want, or Kissmetrics, whatever. Use those things to your advantage to be able to monitor those things for you as best you can. Capturing emails or getting people newsletter subscriptions or people responding to your blog or any one of those things is really, really important. It gives you the ability, the quicker that you start gathering a list of who your people are, that's valuable. So you don't have to go out and buy a list or get someone else to do that for you. You do it yourself. And you continually reach out to people. Okay? I put this in a test, and if I had more room, I would go test, test, test again, dot, 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 because it's important, and continuously improve what you're doing. What works, what doesn't. Okay, and alter things. So when we say objectives, it's important to meet your objectives. Those objectives change over time. This is a fluid kind of thing, isn't it? Marketing never stops. Okay, so we want to look, our idea of success changes over time. Okay, and we want to make sure that we're on the right path though. So we test different things. So we need an analytic tool. Again, I put in Hootsuite or KISS metrics or whatever you want to use. Doesn't matter. I'm sure Leap has access to some of those tools to help you. Take as much help as you can, but look at those analytics and say, okay, you have to do some work with that, but it's well worth it, because the last thing you want, something worked or something didn't work, and you say, well, why? When you have to say, I don't know, that's a problem, right? Because you want to know, okay, I can see where that's coming from. So that's why those analytic tools are really important. Take advantage of the things that you can use and help you. Okay, and that's the reason why probably a lot of you are here, and that's commendable. So you're on that path, but use those analytic tools and have some kind of benchmark. This is where that's best practices. Benchmarking against other companies is always a problem, isn't it? Oh, I'm just looking at my time. I just want to make sure we're good on time. Okay, because I do tend to talk a lot. These benchmarks, it's your benchmarks, right? Okay, so measure week over week, month after month. And so now, once you're in this business for a while, you can look at, well, last year at this time, here's what was happening. Now, maybe looking at, so a year from now, you're going to look at this time and say, okay, what was it? Well, there was a pandemic going on. Okay, that's an unusual situation in the world, right? So maybe you have to take that into consideration. I remember doing Dream of a Lifetime lottery, the lottery where people can win a house and stuff. That was one of my first jobs. And so we're all excited. The launch of the home and CTV News was there. Nick Paparella was there. It was fantastic, right? It was all, we were excited. That was a time when Bush decided that he was going to start a war, Gulf War, and that launched that day. And so we got no media coverage whatsoever because that was an important story. Well, we can't, we have to look at the circumstances around month after month, year after year. But we need to look at consistent growth. Where are we gaining and where aren't we gaining? I love this little quote by Peter Drucker, and Drucker, the D should be capitalized, sorry about that. But Peter Drucker is really a management consultant and marketing. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So I don't know what I have unless I can measure something. Okay, so we need to look at viral growth in some way. Okay, and we need to isolate it, and so we can either replicate it or avoid it. Okay, that post-mortem thing, I don't want to do the things that don't work anymore. I want to do more of the things that do work, but I also want to find other things that are similar to that will work. Because something that works today may not work a year from now, may not work 6 months from now, because your audience idea and perspectives have changed, right? So we have to grow with our target audience and hopefully find new ones as well. And that's really important. The more we do, we look at Under Armour, okay? And they don't have just one target audience. They sell to men, they sell to women, they sell to kids. Look at Vans shoes. I use this a lot because my son wears Vans shoes. He is a skateboarder, and they were a skateboarding shoe when they started. I wear Vans, and I'm an old guy, right? There's two different target audience. I am not getting on a skateboard because that would really endanger my health, and I'm not good at that kind of thing. He uses them. I use them because I think they look good, and they're comfortable and all that kind of stuff. But two distinctly different target audiences, aren't there? But they use it for different things. The use of that product is different. So we need to understand what is working for different groups of people. I was alluding to this brainstorming of creative ideas. So the idea of don't only iterate and optimize, meaning do the same thing, and you get into that pattern. Something works and you continue to do it. And that's a smart idea. And it only works until it doesn't work, right? And then you go, heck, why didn't that work? It worked before. The idea is that your target audience has moved on to something else, or maybe their patterns have changed. Okay, so we always need to come up with new ideas, and we need to brainstorm those things. Okay, so something new and innovative, some ideas are going to fail. Not everything is a home run. Not everything is even a single. There's a lot of strikeouts, trust me. But we look at that and say, why was it a strike? Why didn't that work? Because we've really tried to understand our target audience really, really well. And we thought that would work. Why not? Okay, so figure out or try to have some kind of reasoning. Why didn't it work? Okay, but as you fail, a few of those things or one or two of those things are going to work in some way. And you say, okay, now we cultivate that and we work with that. Okay, the last little thing there I said, never get complacent. Never say, okay, well, we do this, we keep doing that. Yeah, we keep doing that until it's not working as well. That's why we need new ideas. And we need to be constantly, and I know the last thing I want to do is put more things on you and say, okay, we have a whole bunch of things to worry about as entrepreneurs. But one of the marketing things is never get complacent with it and always, you are a complex person. Think of yourself. You're changing all the time. Your attitudes a year ago are different today than it was then, right? Think of yourself as a 15-year-old to where you are now. Totally different, right? My son is totally different than I am. We both wear, honestly, we have the same shoes, except his are size 13 and mine are 9, right? So I know the difference when I'm actually putting on the shoes because his are boats and mine aren't. But they're exactly the same shoe, right? So they're different, but what works and what doesn't, I think, is an important thing to look at. Okay, we're almost done. I think we only have a couple of slides left here. Best practices. I've avoided best practices. And remember, I told you I hate best practices. But what are people saying? And what really works, because a lot of people are coming to marketing, never had a marketing class. And in a normal kind of situation, I would say, okay, hands up anyone who's ever even taken a marketing class before or thought of it in this way. And maybe some of you have, and that's great. But where do we start? You got to start somewhere, right? So we say, okay, number one thing that best practices, sell your solution. You're not selling a product or service. You're selling some kind of solution for people. They have a problem, meaning maybe they don't have something or maybe they need something, and you're selling that solution. Don't dwell on their problem. Get to the point of how you fix that problem. Now, when you say, okay, I'm making bracelets, and you say they're just bracelets at the end of the day. Well, what are you solving? Look at that brand story. What are you doing for them? You're making them feel good by putting something aesthetically really nice on their wrist. It makes them feel good. That's why people buy clothes, or we all buy the same thing. We buy different things because it makes us feel good. There is absolutely no reason to buy a Jaguar as opposed to a Civic, right? And I'm not slagging on Civics, but it's not a Jaguar, right? There's no reason to buy a Jaguar except that it makes us feel good. We are in a different mindset. If we can afford to buy that vehicle, it makes us feel good. They both get us from A to B, but one does it maybe a little faster and more comfort and it makes us feel good about our life to have something like that. So we're selling something. And I think David probably mentioned a brand story, right? What does this do for you? Get to those points. Have some kind of compelling story. What differentiates yourself from your competition? Has to be something. So we look at, there used to be a campaign, and I'm a lot older than probably anybody on this panel here, or anybody here. And I think it was Hertz Rent-A-Car was say, we're number 2 and we're glad for it, because they weren't number 1 in the marketplace. They did exactly what their competition did. What they were looking at was, we're cheaper. Okay, so that's the thing that differentiated them. They weren't doing anything different than the other people in the marketplace, but they were cheaper than everyone else. That is a differentiator, right? So what are you putting on it? Maybe it's price. Maybe it's the only thing different than your competition is your price. But hopefully there's quality or some kind of thing in that you're doing better. Maybe your customer service is better. Maybe something like that. But have a compelling story and use that inside of it. And use all of your resources. Don't overlook any marketing idea, big or small. We only have to make sure that it serves the objectives that we have. Everything we do has to go back to our objectives, and does that serve it? Are we making goals? Are we making gains? So get everyone involved with your business excited to tell your startup story. There's that great idea of you should be able to tell your brand story in a minute, something like that. So when I was, and I'll tell a quick story if I have time, I'll monitor them, yeah.
When I was time, don't worry, Craig.
I have lots of time. Okay, sorry. I never want to waste people's time. So I'm always cognizant. Whenever I go into a pitch and it's 15 minutes, I say, you know what, I'm only going to use 14 of your minutes because I want to be sure. And I think that's really, people's time is valuable. Your time is valuable. When I first started in my marketing career, I worked for a company called Connections. And that's a great name for a company. And this was, I don't want to say how many years ago, that would date me. but it was about connection, connecting with people. Great name. But quickly, a year or two that I was there, we decided to rebrand into something else because it was past connections. It was past that connective stage. We wanted to be something different. And so we did an exhaustive internal kind of idea of what our name should be. And it needs to be a brand story that we can tell and all of those things, really, really important. We finally came up with the name Tenzing Communications. Now, Tenzing, if a lot of you recognize that, is from Tenzing Norgay, which was the Sherpa guide that brought Edmund Hillary up to the top of Everest. A lot of people say, well, Hillary was the first person up Everest. That's absolutely untrue. Those Sherpa guides have been up and down that mountain a lot. But he was the first Westerner, first white man to go up and reach the summit. And that's a story. So why we use Tenzing's name instead of Hillary? Well, Tenzing was the guide, wasn't he? He was the guide that took Hillary up the mountain. And as they were coming to the summit, Tenzing pulled back and said, take the summit for yourself. I've taken you to the mountaintop. It's yours. Okay. I don't know how long that took, and I probably fumbled it because a little bit, but probably less than a minute, right? We are, and we always called ourselves Sherpa guides. We guide our client to wherever they want to be. And then we stand back and say their success is our success. That's what it's about. And that was a compelling story. I remember going to a lot of meetings and conventions and things like that and telling our brand story like that. People always go, whoa, nice. Yeah. And that feels good, right? So we need to be able to tell our story. What does this mean for us? Okay, and everyone in the organization to know it. And we continually work that idea of what this brand story is. I think I have one more slide. Conclusion slide is always a good slide to end with. So conclusion, small business and marketing, it's a blend of this idea of science, analytics, measurement, all those things, and creativity. How do we get content out there that has great creativity? Approach people in new ways, okay? So it is this idea of finesse and flair, and how do we package this up? And how do we communicate it to people? I like this word, I use passion a lot. And a lot of you are here because of your passion to start a business. Commendable, right? And that's, again, this passionate idea. You need to get other people on that same space of passion, okay? And it's the idea of some kind of strategy with what we're doing in terms of marketing, okay? We need to be able to measure it, okay? And need to take this startup to a next level. And as we continually get more and more people, we cultivate as many as we can. And maybe then we can see other target audiences that we can now communicate to. And maybe, again, like our Vans shoes example, the way that it's marketed to me is different than the way it's marketed to my son. He's a skateboarder who really truly gets on a skateboard. I don't get on a skateboard. So it's that idea of we're having different conversations for different target groups. And maybe your product can make that transition. Or maybe you listen to the target audience and get new products out that go towards different people. However you do it, again, through passion and through communication with people. Marketing is about communication. Communication should never stop. So that idea of relationship that I had 4 slides on, because I really believe it. Again, think of your friendships that don't last, or think of your relationships with somebody that don't last. It's usually a lack of communication, isn't it? So we continually need to reach out to people. That check-in idea, meaning we continually have conversations. In bad times, usually, again, I talked about marketing usually falls off because it's the last thing. It needs to be, communication should never stop. It's a critical aspect of what we do for your business, to continually have conversations with our target audience about what they're looking for, what they like about our product, how we can adapt and make it better, and what other things they want. Marketing is the conduit to the customer, and that conduit back to the company. So really, really important. So I think with this presentation, again, I really not wrestled with it. There's just so many areas we could get into, and yeah, we could have done the whole thing of a marketing plan and laid out each area and all those things, and that's important too. But I think looking at mindset and looking at our target audience in a different way, as real people, they're not numbers, they're real people. And why would they engage with our product? What do we solve for them? What's their pain points? How do we solve it? I think is a really critical, and think of it as a relationship. So I think I'll end there, and we can do questions and all of that kind of thing if you want. Um, you know, I appreciate your time. Hopefully, I've added some kind of value here, and that's really what I was doing. And I reached out to David and said, all I want to do is add some value for people. Hopefully, I've done that, and I really appreciate all of your time today, and wish you all the best of luck. I really do.
Thank you, Craig. Do you mind if I stop the screen share? Or do you
Oh,
mind?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Like I feel like you added a ton of value, and I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I'm sure they're feeling exactly the same way. That presentation like nailed it. I had created another presentation that like pretty much you you stole everything out of mine, which is a good thing because you're gonna save me. So it's amazing. That was so concise. And there's just so many golden nuggets and bombs that you dropped in there that I think everybody's going to get some value. I have a ton of questions here, some from me, some that others were sent in. Do you still have time to stick with us for a bit?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, before I go to the board that I have from those who sent them in and my own, I want to open it up to the floor. To everybody, and we'll just keep it in the grid view here. Is there anybody who has a burning question right away they want to ask? Everyone's being shy this morning.
Yeah, I actually have a question, Greg. Yeah. Pleasure to meet you, by the way.
Thank you.
So I've just got my camera off because it'll actually drain my battery. But I just had a quick question. When you were starting your first company, how did you go about? Did you follow the same kind of marketing strategy that you just showed us, or did you do anything specific?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this idea, and that's why I usually start with relationship. I mean, that's a fairly new way of looking at in the past. And if we were doing some of the presentations I took from, or some of the slides I took from stuff that I teach at Fanshawe and kind of adapted. But the evolution of marketing has certainly changed. The idea of I have a product, buy it, right? When you think of the first products or think of like Henry Ford when he started this idea of mass production of a car. Well, you can have whatever you want, it has to be black, right? Because there was no options. When I first started a business, so I was at a marketing agency, and some of my friends who worked there had left, and they were starting this company, and they wanted me to join, and I was really on the fence on that. What we saw was, and that was the beginning of video, and I had produced a couple of videos for our company, and I saw in terms of marketing, this was something that really resonated with people. People responded to the videos that we made. They were fairly expensive to make back then. So, but I thought, okay, this is where the online and social media is kind of moving to. You want to do. So I think for me, I saw a need. I saw a need and said, okay, people are going to want this. And what we can do is package this up, not just for ourselves, but sell this to other marketing companies who don't have the money or the capital to have their own video development part of that, and we will be that for them. And it worked. It's still working today. I'm a silent partner in that, and I don't actively work in that, but still part of it. I still believe in it, right? And I still believe that what I do now is consultation and teaching. In terms of the consultation part, I see a need that a lot of small businesses don't have the money to have a marketing. When you say a marketing department, there, a lot of people look and go, what marketing department? I'm the marketing department. Well, okay, how can I help people with that? Right? So when you identify a need and you try to fill it. And that's where my first couple of companies kind of came from in that way. So now I look at it and say, okay, I'm selling usually business to business, right? But a lot of what we talk about in marketing is business to consumer. And that's a little bit of a different prospect. But at the end of the day, all I'm looking at is for other company and what their pain points are. They don't have enough money to have their own marketing department. I can fill that, right? Or I can fill that idea of they don't know how to make an instructional video. I do. And I can fill that need for them. Omar, does that kind of give you?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely see how you were talking about the evolution of marketing and how you've not manipulated the marketing in toward your business, but I definitely see how it's changed, and it's actually really cool to see the past of marketing versus the now.
It's totally changed, and you're right. The evolution of this is really, and I think it's really exciting because now so many things. It was always in the producers, the people who make it. They determine everything, right? And you either bought it or didn't. Now we look at there's so much choice out there, and there's so many different options. The idea that the consumer is really in charge. They decide. That idea of value, I think, is why I put it in there. Customer value. Nothing has any value until the customer decides it has value. Whatever you guys are doing in terms of your business, as soon as somebody decides I want to buy it or I want to get your service or product, then it has the value that it has. You think it's a great product, you think it's a great service, that's great, but we need to people to decide that, right? And I think that's really exciting. That means we have to listen more, don't we? Right? We have to listen to what they say and what they want.
Yeah. And
oh, sorry, Omar, I'm cutting you.
Oh, no problem. Going through your presentation, it made me realize like there's literally endless ways for you to reach your customer. There's always a new way, which is just like crazy.
It's crazy, and when I say, and I put on one of the slides, it's daunting, right? To say, well, how do I pick the right platform? It all starts with target audience, and maybe I stress this in my classes a lot at Western and Fanshawe, and maybe I didn't stress it here, but to know think about, again, your relationships. When you know, and I'll give you an example, a quick example. When my wife said it was buying me a birthday present, my birthday was just on July 9th. And I asked her a few days before, I said, where presents are coming my way. And she said, well, I got something. I said, really? Because I haven't told you anything that I want. She said, I know what you want. And I said, wow, that's a pretty bold statement. And she said, I know the kind of things you like. So I said, okay, so you've gone off script, meaning I haven't given you something and you've gone on your own. It's a bold move, I said to her, to go off script like that. But the point I'm trying to make is she knows me so well. She can buy something that I've never talked about because she knows I'll like it. Turns out I did, because it was in terms of paddling, it was a new paddle. She knows I like it, even though I didn't ask for it. So now let's transition that to our target audience. When you know them so well, like you know yourself, you can then go off script, right? You can give them more content and things. That's when you go outside of the content because you know the kind of things they respond to. And this changes because people change all the time. And I think that's what Omar was saying there. It's really exciting, daunting, but exciting at the same time, that you can adapt and move with your target audience and find new ones and find new ways to communicate with them. Some of those things are going to work and some of them aren't. Some of them are going to work better than others. Some of them you're going to cultivate and go, this is a slam dunk, I got this, and then it goes nowhere. And you go, why the heck did that not work? And then that's where the post-mortem comes in and say, why didn't it work? Well, then you try different things, right? But it's an exciting time, and I think you're absolutely right. There's so many ways to reach out to people. It's super exciting. Connecting with people is always really exciting.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And with that being said, Greg, happy late birthday.
Thank you so much. I can assume my my new paddle is on the way from Omar.
Of course, yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Does anybody else have a question right this second? Jesse? Maybe maybe it's a good idea that, I know, Omar, you didn't get a chance, but Jesse, why don't you tell Craig your company?
Sure. Hi, Craig. My name is Jesse Long. I'm the owner of the Hot Sauce Co.
Oh,
we make some all natural premium hot sauces here in London, or there in London. I'm just sitting outside a hotel room right now. Apologies for the noise.
Okay.
I'm really interested in getting into video, and I strongly agree that you definitely get a wider reach and a wider response. What are some like pieces of advice you have to maybe be a little bit more comfortable or more smooth on video? I find I'll like even doing some vlogs for this Leap In situation. I find I'm spending a lot of time re-recording and redoing it, and really just like, do you have any kind of tips or tricks to maybe just get a little bit more smooth with it?
Okay. Now, I'm a big, and this is again, David can probably attest to that. I use the word authentic a lot in my classes. You have to be authentic. You have to be what you are, right? So you're saying smooth, and you're probably saying, I kind of fumbled that. I should re-record it and all. maybe your approach to it is not about smooth. Maybe your video is about being real, and maybe those little things that you look at and say, oh, they're not really professional, maybe they're okay, right? Depends on what perspective you're trying to show people. A lot of things on Instagram and YouTube are funny videos, and showing yourself exactly as you are sometimes is okay. You know, and now you're selling hot sauce, natural, organic, and all that kind of stuff. I think it leads to a more grassroots kind of thing. We're authentic people making authentic product. We're not perfect, but you know, at the end of the day, this is a great product. Those kind of things play really, really well. I think people pick up on authenticity and things that are fake, right? So be exactly who you are, and maybe don't. I mean, sometimes I don't want to say don't overthink it, but sometimes don't overthink it, right? And maybe do those things have resonance, and maybe if they don't, then maybe you try a different approach. But I think that authenticity is okay. And I think a lot of times we don't want to put things out until they're perfect. Well, we'll never put stuff out until it's perfect. You know what I mean? Like nothing gets out then. You see what I'm trying to say? And I think especially with the area that you're in, I think that grassroots or authentic approach can really work for you. And I always believe in that. Again, does it feel right? And is really, really important, because this product is really important to you. You're looking for people who are like you, right? And so you're your best barometer of what works and what has resonance for you. That's where you start. And then you kind of build out from there and you try different things. So when you say not smooth, your first attempts of things are not going to be smooth. You know, they're just simply not. But again, what you want to do is get some things out there, to that idea of test, test, test. Well, put it out there and try. All you've done is wasted a little bit of time and a little whatever. If it does, you try something else, right? So
Sure.
my advice to be is don't overthink it and don't be too hard on yourself, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks very much, Craig.
Try some things and use those words that have resonance. So I use authenticity, I use relationship, all those things, because they mean something to me. And I assume they mean something to my target audience as well. Use those keywords. When we could have got into a whole thing of SEO and Google and all that kind of stuff, which I had first and then I took out. Because those keywords are words that mean something to you and your company. And they should mean things to people who are your target as well. So use those things. Right? Yeah, this is a lot of trial and error.
I kind of have a follow-up question that builds off of that. Something you mentioned there, Craig, which was around practicing and testing and testing. One of the things I see as someone who works with entrepreneurs is a lack of patience when it comes to new marketers. Like they're new to this, they're trying things with their brand, and they tell me, "Oh, it's just not working." And then I ask, "Well, how long have you been trying it?" And the answer is usually a week or 2 weeks. If we use Jesse as the example, he's maybe doing a series of vlogs in his kitchen or something like that. How long should you be measuring before you change a tactic and try experimenting with something different? Well, in your best practice.
It's best practice, which I hate, but I understand where you're going with it. I mean, the world is we're dealing in terms of probably social media and things like that, where things change really, really fast, and things are coming out. Your competition's coming out with things, and clutter is a big problem. So to your point of, well, I put out 5 videos and they haven't got a lot. I don't know if there's a best practice, but again, the idea of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. There has to be something in there that you're going to change. So to the point we were just making, maybe the scope or the perspective of those videos needs to change. Maybe the idea of it needs to be changed. And you see companies change all the time of it's not getting the scope or the reaction that I want, so we change it slightly. And sometimes you don't even notice the change. And sometimes those things that didn't work so well now suddenly start to pick up a little bit. So I wouldn't waste a ton of time, but I analyze why is it not having the traction that I think it is. So I don't want to say, well, 2 weeks is the hard and fast rule. Stop at 2 weeks. I don't think that's true, because or I don't think that's a wise thing. but analyze what kind of things surrounding that aren't getting the traction you want. Because ideally, you're looking at it from your point of view. We're just talking about hot sauce, and he's got a passion for it. He's looking for other people who will have passion for that. So what in it, look at it from the customer's point of view. What in it isn't getting the reaction, and would you have that reaction? Everything needs to be looked at from the consumer's point of view. So your customer, when you say, okay, they're not reacting to it, why? If you were looking at it objectively, and that's why people hire third-party marketers, a marketing company, right? Because they can look at it objectively and say, here's why your marketing's not working. Like, you know, a lot of times with entrepreneurs, and here's the deal, is you're hip deep in it all the time, aren't you? You're living this brand 24/7, right? And so when you're dealing with marketing, you say, I have a great product. Why aren't people buying? It's like, you need to look at it from the customer's point of view, though, right? And that's what a marketing company or marketing person can do, is say, well, here's what I see, and here's maybe why they're not responding to it. So we need to be dispassionate a little bit and take yourself out of it and put yourself in the customer's point of view and say, here's probably why they're not responding, and try something slightly different. So I haven't answered your question on purpose, David, because I don't want to say 2 weeks is then stop doing it.
Yeah.
But analyze everything you do and say, okay, I thought this would get more reaction. Maybe I change it slightly. Maybe the next video I make, or maybe the next post I put up, or maybe the next piece of information needs to come from a different point of view, right? Or maybe I need to go, the idea of social media, the first thing we do is listen, right? And I should have popped that graphic up, but we listen to our target audience and say, what are they talking about, and what kind of things are they responding to? So look at your competition or look at other people and see what they put up. I do it all the time. I look at my Instagram and say, why are these people getting all these followers and getting all these likes? My content's way better than that. Well, I am not looking at it from their point of view. People respond to something. What are they responding to, and how do I tap into something like that, right? So that was a long way of going and not answering your question.
I like it though. That was good. I was hoping you weren't going to have
I do that a lot. Yeah, sorry.
3 weeks. Yeah, because
it's not, there's not a formula. If there's a formula, everybody do it. There is a process, but inside of that, there's a lot of nuance, right? Because target audience are different. People are all different. That's the fun of it, I think.
I guess it depends on your perspective. Some people here might go, God, I hate this.
No, they're going, just give me a process that I can follow and I'm done. But communicating with your target audience, and like, I can probably say that when you meet people, if you're selling a hot sauce, you go to a farmer's market and you're talking to those people one-on-one and they're buying, that's the most exciting part of your job, right? When they say, I bought that and I'm back to buy another one, man, there's nothing better than that, right?
100%.
100%. Because now you know that connection has been made. And unless you do something really bad, they may buy other hot sauces too or other things, but they are coming back to you because people want to be loyal. That's a human condition. People want to find something they feel good about, right? It's only when you change something or do something wrong that then that loyalty is hurt. So if you keep doing and keep adapting with your target audience, they're going to be loyal to you and they're always going to come back and buy. And that's exciting.
Actually, just to follow up with that, you know what I realized is that when starting a company, it's, you know, you could do a million things right, but the one thing you do wrong, people will never forget.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It only takes one thing, right? And you can do a million things and yeah, people are with you. But think about it again, let's go back to relationship, right? You can do a million great things. You do that one thing that makes somebody mad, and you go, man, you're just concentrating on that one thing.
Yeah, and then they recognize you as that one thing.
Yeah, and that you go, that's not fair. Well, maybe not, but it's a pain point. It's a thing that hurts them. Think about if you bought Nike shoes and say, I'm a Nike shoe wearer. Then I buy a pair of shoes. It doesn't fit as well. It doesn't hold up. 2 months down the road, the sole pops off. You're not happy. And you say, okay, but I paid a lot of money for these, but I like Nike shoes. Okay, you buy another pair and you go, man, same kind of thing. Now you got trust issues, don't you? You got
definitely
trust issues.
and it, like in our field, being entrepreneurs, it's so like excruciatingly painful because customer satisfaction is the hardest thing to grab because customers have such high standards. They expect the product to be perfect.
Absolutely, they do. I had that slide where it needs to perform the way that I think it should. And you say, okay, I'm buying these shoes for $150. They should last 9 months. Well, technology-wise, in those shoes, in those Nike shoes, really only, if you run a lot, only lasts about 6 months. And then that foam kind of starts to break down. The performance of it goes away. And people don't realize, but yeah, they want peak performance all the time. And yeah, Omar, you might say, well, that's not fair. Yeah, the world's not fair because there's a lot of competition there, right? So someone else is willing to do something different to grab that customer's attention. And they're hoping for, maybe it gets their attention because you have a new quality that maybe you don't have, or maybe that product has let them down a little bit and now they're going to move on to something else. Now I'm not going back to Nike. I'm going to buy a pair of Asics because Nike, the trust is gone.
The world is a big, mean, and ugly place. Moral of the story.
Well, if we've learned anything here today, Omar, that's that's true, but it's also a wonderful place with people who we need to solve their problems. That's all
Yeah,
we're doing.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Then I'll go back to the gallery view here. Does anyone have a question before I go to my list? Else wants to jump in? Okay, everyone's being shy. Okay, I won't say who this one came from then. This one is more around kind of the brand storytelling, brand value props. Question is, what types of brand stories or brand kind of value propositions resonate with you, Craig, the most as a marketer yourself? What kind of things really stand out to you?
Me personally, what I like, and again, I respond to people. Let me tell a quick story. I'm a storyteller, so that's where I go to. I was working for the city of St. Thomas, and if anybody, I'm not sure if everyone's in London here or not, but maybe some of you are in St. Thomas. And we were working for the EDC there, and they said, okay, well, we want to be the green community. We want to be all these things. And I remember saying to them, what, are you that? And they said, well, no, but we want to be that. So, well, why don't you just be what you are, and let's promote that. So let's look at the things, the qualities that you have that are authentic to you, because it's always hard to be something that you're not. Think about telling a lie and then having to hold that up for a long time, and you're like, that's really tough. Just be yourself. So I think authenticity and things that are authentic have resonance for me. And I really respond well. So companies that I feel are doing things in the right way, are sustainable, who are all those things. And those things, and I think maybe Omar said, well, something to that effect of we expect a lot from our companies. Yeah, absolutely, we do. Because someone else is doing that. The only reason we want companies to do that is because other companies are doing that already. So years ago, I worked for a company called 10 Tree, which is a company that sell products and plant 10 trees for every product they got. It's part of their business model. And what I loved about it, it was already in there. It's not a company down the road going on to this green idea and saying, well, we want to be a part of that. They had it right in their business model saying, this is what we're about. We could make our t-shirts and our clothes, in another country, make them cheaper and do it. We're going to have our company here in North America. It's going to cost us more, meaning we have to, yeah, sure, their t-shirts are a little more expensive than maybe some people, but we are trying to show people that this is a company that values these things, and we think other people value those as well. And we are going to hope that people respond to that, and that's what I respond to. Okay, quality people who are upfront, who are exactly who they say they are, who do exactly what they say they are. And you think of the organic idea, right? 15 years ago, if you went into Loblaws and wanted to get an organic product, there might be one or two. Now there's a whole section of the organic, and saying, okay, well, why would people pay for that? Because they like the idea of being healthy. They like the idea of sustainability. They like the idea of supporting local. And I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that because I understand they're not doing it on a mass scale. Think of craft breweries, right? We're doing it on a smaller scale. We're not Labatt's, we're not Molson's, but we're doing different and interesting things that they're not doing, right? I respond to that. And those are the things that have resonance. And I think you see that whole swell of people who respond to authenticity and quality and all of those things. And at the end of the day, maybe you watch Shark Tank or Dragon's Den. What these people are investing in is, yeah, it's a great idea, it's a great product. They're investing in those people, make no mistake, right? They believe in those people, that they have the passion, the drive, they want to back people who have that kind of same thing. And
Actually, yeah, something I realized in one of our previous speakers, they said that to always include the why in your pitch, because the people, they want to know that you're sticking through with your idea. They want to know how you have that personal touch with your idea.
And that's Omar, right? There's your face. So yeah,
Yeah, hi.
I assume that's you. But I think that's absolutely true. We that's why bigger companies, when we look at social media and say, well, nobody wants to follow TD, but they want to follow people. And that's what this idea of, we make it more real. We want to make big corporations real people. We want to make people by people who make good products, all those things. And I think that's true. When you think about Home Depot, why do they make all those playgrounds in communities and do all that stuff and promote it? And that's PR. We could have got into that as well. Why do they do that? Because they're giving back to their community. They see a big corporation that makes money off of a community, but also gives back to their community. And these people go out and actually build those community parks for their kids, and they're a part of that community. That feels good. You know, that corporate social responsibility is what we, and so again, Omar, I think you said they expect a lot. Yeah, they do, because that's what other people do. That's what other companies do. So we better be doing it too. That's the minimum standard they expect, right? Interesting. That's why it's so fascinating. So again, David, back to your, I don't know that I've answered your question, but maybe I did.
No, I think you did. I think you
I
know,
hope so.
in a roundabout way.
In a very round, that's me, I'm a roundabout kind of guy.
Where did my next question go? I'm lost here in the slew of notes here. This one's kind of more your personal perspective as well. What's your favorite way to generate new creative ideas? Do you have a method or a process when you're trying to come up with a campaign?
Well, and it is why I put that brainstorming thing down. And this may sound real cliche, I have a pad of paper all over my places, and I write things down all the time. I see something on TV or see something on social media. It's not about looking at your competition and copying that, because that's a simple thing to do. I'll do exactly what my competition does. I have to take that idea and where do I go from there with it? So yeah, I like and this is why Pepsi monitors Coke and says, okay, I like what they're doing there. And why are they having that conversation? So how can we adapt that? But how do we go further with it? So I'm always constantly, when I say, I put marketing at the bottom of what I am. I love marketing in a big way because it's communication. So I'm constantly, a term I like is being passionately curious. And I use this in class all the time. You have to be passionately curious about your area or your what you're looking at, but you have to be passionately curious about your audience as well. And constantly looking for what are they responding to and how can I adapt that into something that I want to do. Always go back to this idea of being authentic to yourself. If you're trying to copy someone else, you're not being authentic to yourself. All you're doing is copying, and I can guarantee you're probably not going to do it as well as the company that you're copying. So take that idea and saying, what is the core idea of it? How do I make that mine? And what do I want to do with it? So I'm constantly writing things down and constantly talking to people. I get inspiration everywhere I go. And also that's why I put on the first slide all of the things that I do. And I was just doing this morning when I say I'm a paddler, a stand-up paddleboarder. And I was out on the lake this morning before I came to meet you guys. And I always stop at some point and kind of float and kind of think about those things that have resonance for me, things that inspire me, things, what am I looking at? What am I doing? I can guarantee thoughts come into your mind and say, okay, maybe I could do something like this. Maybe I'll try something like this. And David, to your point, not everything's going to work. Not everything's a slam dunk. Not everything's even a single. You're going to strike out sometimes and go, I really thought that would work. Why didn't it work? What was the thing? If any of you I'd sign up for emails like from Banana Republic or Gap or something, you'll get 3 or 4 a day that says 40% off and all. They have found that 40% excites people. 20% off, it doesn't get people very involved. They have to try that, right? They have to try different things to get people to their website to buy things. So what is it, right? We need to try new things. And so I think I find it through, it doesn't even have to be in your industry. It can be from something else and say, that's a really interesting idea though. Maybe I'll try that. Maybe there's an experiential thing that we can do. Maybe we can do an event online. Maybe we can do something else. I think in these times where we're online doing this, how do I get people excited and engage with it, with our product? Engagement is really interesting. The worst thing that can happen is nobody does anything, right? And you go, why the heck didn't that work? Like if you get negative, a lot of clients use oh, I got a lot of negative responses. I'm like, okay, great. And they're like, why great? And I said, well, at least we got something. Now we can turn those people around, right? I can now make champions of those people. Think about if you're upset with a brand, maybe. And I did this years ago. Lululemon, which is a brand I love, and I have a lot of their stuff. And the inner lining of the shorts had ripped, right? So I'm in there with my wife. I'm in Lululemon, and I said, yeah, you know what? These shorts ripped. And the guy said, oh, bring them back. And I said, no, they're like 3 years old. I wear them all the time to the gym and running and stuff. He's like, no, bring them back. He got them fixed for me. He had no obligation to do those. You know what I mean? Those kind of things. That's inspiration. The way that they handle their customers. I'm like, that's the way I want to handle my guy. I always say to customers, I'll never spend your money. I'll spend it like it's my own money. I'll never spend your money in a way that would be bad for you. I'm always going to spend it in a way that I think is going to be the best support of your brand. So, Omar.
Sorry, David. Yeah, I 100% agree with what you and David are talking about, building that customer loyalty, because a lot of companies do care, and I realize a great way to actually reach customers with whatever it is that you're doing is if it actually influences their life, and their sort of lifestyle. Because, for example, with these bigger companies, like you pay for the name, right? Because this red T-shirt, if it was just plain, I could probably sell it for whatever it was custom make, maybe $5. But if I were to put a little Nike swoosh here, I could sell it for $90. So I think you definitely pay for the name, and when you build that brand loyalty and you offer that customer satisfaction, then it really brings the customer back.
Yeah, it totally does. Think about loyalty is a big thing, right? Loyalty, they have, even at the grocery store. I use the grocery store as an example in a lot of the things that I do. There's a lot of things vying for your attention, but we are loyal to certain things that work. I remember, and again, Dave will know this, we've been in a class with me, and of the laundry detergent, and going down, and Craig's really confused. He walks down the laundry aisle and goes, oh my God, there's all these different colors and bold and gain and all this stuff. And it's confusing. So I bring it home, and here it is. And my wife says, what's this? I'm like, it's laundry detergent. She's, that's not what we buy. I'm like, really? There's something that we buy? You haven't? She knows, because she has bought it, and she's very analytical. She's a lawyer. She's all the things that I'm not. She's all these things, and she knows what works and what doesn't work. We buy this and something else, barring a cataclysmic event, we're buying that within a few dollars. You know what I mean? Because she has tried different ones, and this is the one that works best. Great, right? So we're loyal to things until we're not loyal to things, until something happens. Either a bad experience with it, or another company comes out with something. If Apple was still on Apple 4 and Samsung was moving along, at some point people would say, okay, the Samsung is a far superior product. That's why Apple and Samsung have to move lockstep and take qualities and continually do it, or Samsung would surpass them, right? So we continually have to move with our target audience. People will move with us until there's some reason not to move with us, right?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Craig. I really appreciate your time. I don't know how much time you have left, but I'd definitely like to connect with you later down in the future. I just don't want to take up any more time.
Absolutely. No, and I'm open to any of those things. And as David and I were talking about me coming here and doing that, I think this is a critical time in our country and our world and all those things. We cannot stop great ideas. New ideas have to get out there. New companies have to be started. New innovation has to start. And that's why I was excited to come, because I think this is the future. Our country has to move, be it online or whatever it is, safely, obviously. we have to continually do this. So let's figure out how we can make this work, right? And this is really, really important. So that's why I wanted to come here. I think what you guys are doing is really great, and wherever I can help, I'm in, right?
Really appreciate that.
Absolutely, no problem.
I have one last question for you, Craig, and I think this would be a good one to kind of summarize everything that we've talked about. This last one is more or less if you're looking to outsource. So as a startup, as growing and scaling, when should you start to think about hiring a marketing professional, bringing in that outside perspective?
Loaded question, big time. When you have a budget, right? And I talked about a budget for marketing and stuff, and stick to that. And you can only afford what you can afford. The problem with it, not the problem, and I talked about the limited resources: time, money, human capital, meaning you don't have all of those things. And that's where big companies have it over on smaller companies, because they can afford to hire people. If they see a gap, they hire for it. We can't do that as entrepreneurs. And I'm in the same position. I have a company and I can't afford to hire all the people I'd like to. So I have to outsource. I have to go to that. So the answer to that probably is, first of all, you can only afford what you can afford, right, David? So, and that makes sense. But if you're not getting, if you're truly stuck, if you're truly like, I am not connecting with an audience on anything here, and maybe I'm just not, I haven't learned enough, or I haven't understand the implementation of something, or I'm not getting the right content. I think there's enough organizations like yours and other people who are willing to help you, at least get you started and say, okay, now I see maybe I can do some of those things myself. So the answer to that question is a tough one. As early as you can afford to do it, but find those avenues that you can find. No, you can't afford to go to a big agency in Toronto and pay $300 an hour for. That's crazy, right? Only certain people can do those kind of things. But seek out the people that can. Things like this, and things like, okay, well, can we sit down for a one-on-one and kind of let's talk about what. I have a lot of clients that say, yeah, I want to start a Facebook or a blog or something. I want to make myself an expert. And I say, great, absolutely. I said, but also think about, you need content all the time. So yeah, you may have one or two posts that you think are going to be really great, but what about the next week? What about the week after? What are we going to do? And you have to have those things. So let's think about that, and let's brainstorm or chart out a path of what we can do. Your schedule is so busy. What can you do? What can't you do? And who can we get to help you with those things? Is there an avenue for that? Automate as much stuff as you possibly can using the analytic like Hootsuite or something like that, or gathering information. But for the content, again, it takes maybe another person, like in a venue like this or something similar, to kind of let's talk about it and kind of see where we can go. It's hard. It's a hard one, David, really, to say, well, when should you hire a third person? If you can, it's always find something affordable that you can get, but that person is really valuable because they're not in the business like you are. And they're external, so they can look at it with a dispassionate kind of bias, right? And say, okay, here's what I see. And then you may say, no, that's not true. No, the idea of a SWOT analysis, the internal and external kind of thing, they're looking at what your strengths and weaknesses are. And a lot of times when I do this with clients, they'll get strengths and it's either one or the other. They'll have a lot of strengths and no weaknesses, or a ton of weaknesses and no strengths, because they're hard on themselves, right? And all those things. So the people that are hard on themselves, you say, okay, no. Okay, yeah, you got a lot of weaknesses. We can fix those. But let's look at the things that you're doing really well. Here are the things that are really, really good about your business, what you have. The people who have a lot of strengths and no weaknesses, now that's a problem, because then you have to give them a little wake-up call and say, here's what I see. Here's what is happening. And they say, oh, no, that's not true. It's like, okay, now I'm here for a reason. I'm here to help you. I'm not here just to bring you down. I'm here to make your business better. And it helps you analyze a target audience when you have someone else who can see that and help you look at, here is what people are about. Create personas, create this idea of who your customer is. Let's really map out who your target audience is. What kind of things do they like? What kind of things don't they like? When I said pain points, it's a term I like a lot, meaning what can we solve for them? What kind of things can we help them with? What does our product solve, and how can we solve them? What other things are they into? What other brands are they into? Now we're getting that complete story of them. And now we can go, as I said about my wife and the gift, go off script because we know them so well, right? And that's an important thing. When you know somebody that well, think about your closest relationship. I know that person so well, it's like almost myself. And you might say, well, you can never know somebody that much. No, it's constant, right? I'm still learning things about people that I've known for years. That's the exciting part about it, because your target audience changes. My son changes from when he was young to today. His mindset is completely different. And it will change because he's 18 years old. It will change in the next minute or so. But certainly in a year, 2 years, whatever, we're at different points. We move with them and constant. So when we say, okay, we have a target audience and we know everything about them, it's fluid, consistent. Right? So there, David, I think you've asked me 3 questions. I don't think I've answered any of them straight up.
That's okay, because the discussions were great anyways. Totally
and
fun.
that's my little trick is, okay, so I kind of shifted. But hopefully,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
I was just saying, like your last point there, you know, we spent a good part of the last couple of weeks, you know, providing opportunities for the entrepreneurs here to learn more about their customers, like through different tactics and resources and things like that. And I think you guys can all see how everything we've done up to this point is starting to build all into, you know, how we go about, you know, getting our messages out there and actually creating some type of actions. Like we need all of this information in order to build what Craig, you know, has said, is that relationship. Because if you don't have that relationship, you don't have a business, right? So this has been great. I love the discussion format, Craig. I think if we could have you here all day, I would keep you here all day. But I know that's.
Well, I have a class at 2, but that's my only commitment. Well, the water, the lake is calling me, but that's okay.
Lucky. That's very lucky. Well, is there anything else anybody has before we say thanks to Craig and let him go back to the lake and make us all jealous?
Thank you so much, Fred, and learned so much from you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. A pleasure. Absolutely. I mean, marketing is a passion of mine. And again, David knows I'm a talker. So I could go, and when he says all day, I could go all day, because I think these things are really important though, right? Because your business is really, really important, and we want it to be successful, and not everything's going to be successful. So let's put as many favorable things in our hopper that we can to make it as successful as it can be.
Well, thank you so much, Craig, for being with us today. This was awesome. I hope we can continue this again next year. We are going to. I'm going to send you a link to our new growing online platform. So if you did want to connect with the entrepreneurs on there, you'll have the ability to. And definitely, everybody, if there's more questions you have or anything like that, definitely let me know, and I will shoot them off to Craig. But thank you for taking the time. I know you're away at the cottage, so we really do appreciate you joining us. And I know there's tons of information here. I look forward to reviewing the video, and I'm sure many of us do as well. But we always do a thing here at the end. So if you don't have your camera on and you can turn it on, please do so. We like to have a good send-off here for all of our presenters and speakers. Charlene, are you there? I think she might be on the phone. Okay.
Hey, I had to switch to the phone. I'm sorry, my son got sick again.
That's okay, no problem, Charlene.
It's always something with 4 kids. Sorry.
Andre, you ready for a screenshot?
I'm ready. I have my camera ready.
Everybody wave bye to Craig and say thank you.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Craig. We'll talk soon.
Good luck, everybody. Good luck.
Awesome.